This is the place where you're entitled to Brad's opinion. And now for your host, Brad Allard.
Well, we are another week. Had a lovely day. Today I have Dan McClendon, who got some good news this last week. He'll be running unopposed.
My favorite word in the English language.
Unopposed, yes, sir. So one last thing, right? And we'll be talking, though, about plans. Also, I'm going to bring up something that Matthew Lucci brought up on his appearance last Tuesday. And I want to clarify that because what he was referring to, basically, I must have missed it. So I want to get it straight from somebody who was there, what exactly he was referring to. Also talk about, this new library, which we're starting tomorrow, apparently. No, we're not.
Yeah, right.
But we'll be talking about that and what future plans for the city and whatnot. But first, let's dive into the sponsors because they make this happen. Thank you, Otto, for all you do at our place. By the way, check out his page because they're hiring now for Gina's Pizza. He's opening it up. He'd like to open it up by the end of this month or certainly by the first week of March. And he's going to be talking and interviewing people this week. So if you're looking for a good employer and a good job, this is about the best you're going to get because he's a good guy and he'll take care of you. I really appreciate when he puts out Facebook posts about what his employees need, like a new car or a place to rent or something like that. Our Place Restaurant, I was just there twice last week, so it's a great place. I know you've been there more than once.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. Who hasn't?
Great place. Mm-hmm.
Even people from out of town know Our Place, so there you go.
Right.
Also, thank you, Wild Cigar and Culture. I hope y'all are doing well over on the Standard. I talked to Nathan about a week and a half ago. Things are going pretty well. It's a good time to go check out the cigar selection they have because they got a bunch of new ones in. They got that big humidor. Plus, you can get yourself a decent drink and hear yourself think. That should be their motto. You go to a lot of these places. Let's just say gentlemen of a certain age bracket don't need to be shouting over the table.
Right.
Yeah. So, Wild Cigar, thank you for all y'all do. Also, in about 2 weeks, I'll have Tiffany and Nico on with their new issue. Also, we're promoting the St. Patrick's Day pub crawl. I guess with a name like McClendon, you can get away with being Irish, right?
Yep, Irish or Scotch. We're not sure.
Yeah, well, just something like that. Yeah, but everybody's Irish on that day. It's like everybody's Hispanic on Cinco de Mayo. So it's just funny how they adopt those things. But anyway, Local Life Magazine, it goes 30,000 homes and a lot of the retail outlets, and it's a very, very good value for your dollar. Also, thank you to Southern Jim, with Gayla. She's asking me already to promote this. May 4th is going to be a big day in this town. May 4th is Election Day.
Yes, it is.
It's also Lisa Schwartz's City on the Hill, and it's also Kentucky Derby Day at Southern Jim. So from 3 to 8, come by and, watch the race and have a mint julep or whatever they do for the Kentucky Derby. She's really into horse racing.
And may the 4th be with you.
That's going to be a Star Wars type theme, yes. Yes. And so it's going to be lots of fun. Well, actually, no, hers, let me be clear. Lisa's is the one that's going to be Star Wars themed on her City on the Hill. Gayla is going to have the hats and the big flowery things, and, they're going to have the, very Kentucky Derby oriented entertainment kind of stuff. So if you come dressed as Darth Vader, they won't kick you out, but you're in the wrong place. So, Southern Jim over at the Standard. Thank you very much.
That's a lot of cross-cultural connections all at one time.
I know. It's a busy day. 2 maids. Now, here's a programming note. I was going to have Brenda Ramirez on tomorrow, and she texted me yesterday, said, I have an opportunity to land a really big job, but they can only meet Tuesdays. So tomorrow, we'll have to put her show on another time because, well, you can't pass up this opportunity. And it's indicative of the kind of business she does. 2 Maids does residential cleaning, office cleaning, you name the space, they can clean it. And you pay them based on the rating you give them. It's not a per set or per hour thing. They come, they do the job, you rate them, that's how they get paid. And so obviously be very motivated. Several people in my B&I group, they use her services and they love it. They really do. So 2 Maids, give her a call at 817-764-0733 or 2maidscleaning.com/Burleson. Our friends over at Old Pro Roof, they're come check your roof out for nothing and tell you what you need. If you need anything, they're not going to try to upsell you. John Williams at 817-734-2756 will come check your roof out. This is the time to do it when it's nice and sunny, not when it's raining and find out, oh, I need my roof inspected because this leak here. you remember, I'm sure, one of the founders, our friend, the late Matt Aiken.
Yes, sir.
Yeah, and and John told me that it really hit the company pretty hard.
It hit us all really hard.
Yeah. So, but the Corey Aiken is maintaining it, and they're doing well. So John Williams, 817-734-2756. Also Candy and Sammy over at Camco. Sammy Campbell could be reached 817-778-4592. Candy at 817-925-2661. They'll help you with the refinancing, help you with your mortgage if you're looking to buy. You're looking to refinance your home, cash out, whatever. I've done it twice with them over in other spots they've been in, and they do a really good job, and they're really, really good people. So check out Camco if you're looking for financing for your home. Also, this month, do we still have the Next Step logo? Next Step, there it is. Next Step is having a fundraiser there, a matching fee fundraiser, up to $15,000. So if you want to give it like an extra amount, if you're already a donor, if you give a donation to the group, they'll be matched. And so they're using this to really push forward what they're trying to do. They got some stuff going on in April that they'll be on the show probably in March sometime to talk about that. A wonderful, wonderful outfit. So if you want to give, it'll be matched. Also, one other last thing. Taylor, did you get what I sent you on Mr. Burns?
Give me 1 second.
Well, I got a call from the Burns people, and they're having an event tonight over in Cleveland at 6:00. And I thought I'd send it to Taylor. Maybe I did, maybe didn't. But I get confused pretty easily these days. Anyway, they asked me to promote what's going on with the Burns. I put it on my Facebook page too, and a couple of the other spots. They're having it at the Cleveland Conference Center at 6:00, and they're having musical guest William Clark Green. So go by and talk to Mr. Burns. That's what I'm going to be doing tomorrow. I'm going to replay last Monday's show with Mr. Burns. I think I saw a lot of commercials about Mr. Burns, and they're bothersome. This idea that he doesn't want your children to go to the school they want to and all this other business. I believe Ms. Curran came and spoke at one of our council meetings. Is that normal?
No, it's not.
Mm-hmm.
And, I think everyone's fairly well aware of how this is coming about. And I don't know that is it not normal? Is it even appropriate? To use a city council meeting to launch your platform and getting yourself exposed in a lot of different ways.
Well, I thought that was inappropriate myself, but I thought, okay, but I don't know how this works, and if did they sign up for time like any other person does? But
anyone can speak to the city council at any meeting. That's always their entitlement. It just
stuck in my craw a little bit because here y'all are, and you're supposed to be nonpartisan certainly, but we all have our political leanings, but the city council business. I don't know if this is the right or forum for a candidate to come and put out their promotions.
Honestly, I think the city council should exist in a party-free bubble, if you will. We shouldn't be affected by that. Our decisions are local. They're not based on some state or federal platform of political accomplishment that's trying to be taken. Just before her appearance, or I guess just after her appearance, Governor Abbott was here in town stumping for her, and it's. I shouldn't say things that are out of my realm to talk about, but it's not entirely coincidental that he happened to be here. He is trying to promote her campaign for his own interests, and I think we're all pretty well aware of that.
Well, I don't know Ms. Kerwin. I don't know much about her.
I don't either. She may be a great lady. She certainly presents well and is very knowledgeable, and I'm sure she's chosen it for the right reasons. But the way things happen sometimes give you a little bit of clues about what's behind it,
Well, I'm not quite as inhibited as you must be as a representative. I'm very much supportive of Mr. Burns. I think he's done a great job. I think he is,
do I.
And I think he is. He's supported the schools. If you listen to his show last week, you'll learn that he voted against the vouchers not strictly because he's against the concept, but because a lot of that money would have gone to people that aren't residents of our state, aren't citizens of our state. Is a better way to put it. They're residents, but not citizens.
Right.
And so he said we would have a legal residence here that would be access to the money for vouchers. Because the state of Texas basically is, if you live in the district, it doesn't really matter if you're a citizen or not. This goes back to Rick Perry's days. Rick Perry signed this into law where if you live in the district, you're going to go to the school, whether you're a citizen or not. Well, this voucher plan would not have distinguished between citizen and non-citizen. So you'd have Texas taxpayer money going to pay for school choice for people that aren't citizens, that don't pay taxes. At least, they pay taxes of a sort, but they're not paying property tax. They may be paying sales tax. But anyway, that's why I think he's usually getting a bum rap, because I'm watching the ball game and watching other stuff, and there's these commercials, and they show Burns in the worst picture possible, and all this other stuff, and about how he doesn't want your kids to go to school and all this other business. Also, what's really driving is the impeachment vote, and that's cost him too. But
yeah.
Anyway, you can watch it tomorrow if y'all didn't see it the first time. And let's talk about city business now.
Yeah, please.
Yeah, it's a lot easier because I know you got to be careful. You don't want to. In private conversation, you might say what you like, but here in the public, you're representing the city and all that business.
Absolutely.
So last week I had Matt Lucci on, and I did not know this. For those who don't know, Matt Lucci's running against Roger Williams in the District 25 primary. Somebody pointed out the fact he came to one of our meetings about a month ago and protested taxes. And Taylor, I believe you have that picture. We showed it when he was on. Yeah, this is him. During the meeting, it's early January, and it has a sign, no new taxes. Now, maybe I was asleep at the switch on this one, but I don't remember y'all discussing new taxes.
We weren't. That's what seems so odd about this. Mm-hmm. I don't recall exactly what it was that he was there for, but it didn't affect us. It didn't seem to make any sense to me why the signs, why the new taxes.
But I don't even remember the conversation being about it. And I asked him about it, and he tried to explain it, that y'all are contemplating like a 9-cent tax increase or 9-point tax increase, something like that. I would imagine if that were the case, 9 points is a lot for one thing. And if that were the case, I'd imagine Facebook and social media and Instagram would have blown up.
It would have. Yeah. And as a matter of fact, the record is that we've actually lowered the taxes from the last budget as far as the tax rate. Even though it's, I don't know if you're aware of this, but if we pass a tax rate lower than the previous year's tax rate, when we make the motion to pass that tax rate, we're required by state law to state that we are raising the tax rate. And I've taken it for the team just about every year this has come up to say we're going to raise the tax rate. But prior to making that statement, I make it very clear that we are not actually raising the tax rate, but on the other hand, lowering or keeping it the same. And 5 out of the past 6 years, I believe we've actually lowered it.
Right.
And so it's a misnomer. It's part of, as I understand state law, that with what we're required to say when we make the motion to vote on a tax rate, whether it's a lower rate or, but if we raise any new revenue at all, we have to say that. And of course, you raise new revenue if you apply the same tax rate to properties that have developed since the last budget that have increased in valuation, which is another total matter that's out of the city's hands. But new development will raise the amount of property on which we apply an ad valorem tax rate. So you can actually get more tax revenue even when lowering the tax rate.
Well, his point was that you could have maintained it at the level and rebated some of the extra tax revenue. But to me personally, and we kind of got into it a little bit, but because I wasn't there to confront him and all that business. But to me, if I were a taxpayer, would I want a few bucks back? Maybe be like $30 a month on it, or $50 a month back.
More like a year.
Yeah, you're not going to get much. It's not going to change your life. But not having that road will be more inconvenient. Not having that other service might be more inconvenient.
And that's going to be one of the themes that people are going to hear me talking about, because I've already said a number of things from the dais about this, that we have for the past several years kind of adopted a mindset that we're going to keep taxes low, we're going to reduce it when we can, and that's been a response to some outcry from the citizens, which is always going to be there. It's still going on, but we have a higher responsibility than just maintaining a certain number. We're supposed to maintain a roadway network and buildings that we operate. We're supposed to provide all the services that people expect us to provide. And in order to be able to do that, there is a dollar amount that's going to have to be achieved. I've heard an old saying in the construction industry that you can outbid and you can get any job you want, but the trick is you've got to be able to provide that job and still be sustainable.
Right.
You've got to be able to, in our case, make a profit. City's not trying to make a profit, but the city has to maintain a level of service of our infrastructure, roadways, water lines, sewer lines, our buildings, our sports fields, our parks, everything that we provide. There has to be a level of service that we achieve that we can continue to achieve through the year. The things that ad valorem taxes go towards are these things. So we've had some conversations recently in the council chambers about what level of service are we willing to strike for here, and to maintain that level of service, we're going to have to look at more capital expenditures and more O&M expenditures, the source of which is going to be ad valorem taxes. So I'm trying to be realistic. One of the first steps that we've already undertaken is to create and refine an asset management program that will basically continually monitor the condition of our assets, which is one part of this whole scheme that we've got to maintain. What level of service are we providing? How bad are our roads? What condition is each block of street? What condition are the pipelines, water lines, sewer lines? How are we managing drainage issues? You know, how much flooding are we willing to live with? And all these things are a part of that asset management program. But the asset management program will have to be funded. And we can't continue to just push to lower taxes unless we can show how we can do that and still maintain what we have to maintain, as well as the level of service for police, fire, and ambulance service now, and all the other things that we do as a city. So it's kind of being irresponsible just to hang your hat on the idea of lowering a tax rate number and calling that your accomplishment.
Well, I just had a mental picture when Mr. Lucci was talking about, you know, our mayor going along with a tax increase. I mean, you know, that would, I think he'd rather eat ground glass than do that. So, but that's why I had such a odd response to it, because I know y'all weren't talking about changing, you know, increasing the rate. Everybody knows the valuation is going to increase your tax bill. Right. All right. There's not much you can do about that. And had you not been lowering the rates, their bills would be much higher now.
Right.
But, you know, I from what I see, you know, I live right outside the town, so I don't pay city taxes, but I'm sure pay everybody a lot of, you know, taxes and sales tax and gas tax and whatever else. From what I see, Burleson's a pretty well-run city. Now, I know there's problems and there's potholes over here, and there's there's maybe glitches here, and you got to go through bureaucracy. That's the nature of a big enterprise. But I think we're a pretty well-run city.
I think we are too. We've always made efficiency and service delivery priorities. I think everybody has a perception that a city wastes money, that a city spends money that it doesn't need to spend. Well, so do corporations from time to time. And
that's true there.
You know, it's what your mission is that you're trying to accomplish. One of the basic tenets that our strategic planning continues to refer to is paying the kind of salaries that we need to pay to attract the best and brightest people. Those people are the performers, the upper level managers, assistant managers, department heads, and even down to the workforce level. To get good work, I'm saying this from a employer perspective, because that's me. I have 55 people on the payroll of McClendon Construction, and at times more than that. But to get the work done the best way you can't pay the bottom wages, because the people that are willing to work for the bottom wages is going to be what you're going to have.
You do get what you pay for.
So I'm not sure how I got branched off on this topic.
That's a good topic to know.
To change the game at all, you have to make changes in efficiency, because there are hard costs that you're going to have to meet. There are jobs that are going to have to be staffed. But if you can get more work done by planning it better, coordinating it better, then you can achieve efficiency, which is kind of paramount in running a business of any kind or a public enterprise.
Well, I worked for private industry long time ago before I was a school teacher, big company, Dun & Bradstreet, and they were not the model of efficiency. My son works at Boeing, and his tales are, numerous about how Boeing wastes money, and and all the processes and procedures. So that's the nature of a big enterprise. But I think for what I've seen, trash gets picked up, the streets are repaired as quickly as they can be. People, their checks arrive on time and they don't bounce. So I think we're in a pretty good spot, and we are growing, and we have those growing pains.
Sure.
Well, I'd rather have growing pains than declining pains, because some of these communities, not so much in DFW, but out west, in smaller towns, they're struggle just to pay the bills,
right?
Keep the lights on, and that's not been our problem. But there's a couple other major projects. I didn't brief you, I guess, so to speak, prior to the show, but I would ask.
It's going to be totally off the cuff.
All right. Well, one of the things about the last bond was about the police and fire situation.
Yes.
And there was about 2 months ago a conversation about additional funding for the police station. And it got some people pretty cheesed off, so to speak, because they wanted X amount. Y'all decided on a little less than X amount, or at least 5 of y'all did.
Right.
So you want us to walk us through that decision process?
At the outset and the planning of the bond program, we had a full facility in mind, and as the process went along, it appears that some of the prices, some of the costs that we were using were perhaps undershot a little bit.
Right.
So the closer we got to actually beginning to put plans in effect, we learned that the budget was going to have to be higher than it had been in order to give all of the things that we wanted to give. So we had to start looking at it realistically and see what could we actually do within the debt capacity that we have. We do borrow money, and it's something I've said before. It sounds kind of strange, but if we're not borrowing and leveraging what we're able to collect in taxes to the extent that we can, then we're not doing our job. If we had gone all the way to the limit on what the actual cost of the police station was going to be, we were going to be above $53 million,
right,
if I remember correctly.
That's about right, yes.
And that would have been beyond our ability to leverage our taxes to get that. Our debt ceiling at the level we set in, which was about $42 million, if I recall.
It was, and
we were going to give the police guys just about everything they needed to set them up now for a 20-year growth. But that would have required a remodel of a building about 5 years down the line, which would have been some additional expense. But that's where we let it settle in, because we could do that within our ability to borrow money and pay for it. We had about $8 million. $8 million of debt capacity left. Not enough to get to the $53 million, but enough to have something still in our hat in case some things came up. But as they've gone into the process, a couple of the things that we didn't think we'd be able to provide, I think the council has decided we're going to go ahead and throw those in anyway, even if we have to reach out and get a little bit more of that diminishing amount of debt capacity that's still out there. And that's, I think the Sally Port was the main feature that Councilmember Russell just basically told staff, look, if there's a way to get that in here, let's get that in there. The rest of the council agreed. So that $42 million number is now a little bit higher.
It's 48, I believe.
But as they're getting into the process of doing this, they're also discovering that there are some things that aren't going to cost as much as they thought they would cost. And so hopefully at the end of the day, this number that we've agreed upon is going to be the final number.
Well, I appreciate you taking one off the cuff, because I'd forgotten about that until it just came to mind. We talk about past meetings, but I think it's important to understand. I guess what bothered me about that episode was that y'all were increasing it by $6 million, yet some people were showing that were claiming you weren't backing the blue and didn't protect our boys and didn't care about public safety. And I'm like, that's rubbish. They put in $6 million more. And knowing y'all, I'm sure public safety is uppermost in the mind of the council.
Oh, absolutely.
And I didn't agree with some of the characterizations that y'all didn't support the police and all this other business.
The characterizations are entirely unfair.
I know. And I guess I wanted you to be able to say that.
Right. But, we do the best we can to meet all the needs and even all the wants. We're all very cognizant of how difficult the jobs are that these guys do and how and women do and how dire their circumstances can be at the drop of a hat, and we're very, very sympathetic to that. Not any council member, if they spent their last dollar, they'd spend it on the police department. But
what interesting to me, what Victoria pointed out in her last show is that portion of the bond barely passed. All right, the street portion passed without much problem, but the public safety one passed like by 8 or 9 votes.
Right.
And I'm like, are all the people that voted against the bond also not backing the blue? I mean,
that's a fair consideration.
Yeah, and so to say that because you didn't increase it as much as some wanted, that you weren't being supportive of the police, I thought it was an unfair characterization, like you mentioned.
Right.
Oh, by the way, Alex Phillips says good morning. That's always a great guest. I like to have him on the show because he has so much going on. He only tells me what he's allowed to say. So even off the record line, doggone it, I want some gossip here. But anyway, but I just wanted you to be able to clarify that because I know y'all back the blue, and I bet anybody that's dealt with the police think that's one of our best assets is our police. The real estate people tell me all the time: schools, public safety, economic opportunities. And I think Burleson hits all 3 of those very, very well. Speaking of other plans, another one is this, conjecture proposal for a new library. Okay. That's a 10-year plan at best, right?
If it even starts to happen within 10 years, I'll be very surprised.
Right. But
we're many, many, many steps away from citing and constructing a new library.
Yeah, but you'd read some of the postings, and it's like we're breaking ground tomorrow. And
and I've heard it said in just basically those words. The city council voted to spend $60 million. The city council hadn't even seen the library study at that time. It came up in a library board meeting, and the city council had approved the study and had not seen the results yet. And at that time, it hit Facebook that we were going to spend $60 million on the library, and everybody was off to the races.
Well, that's the unfortunate thing is that people make assumptions that aren't really valid because they saw y'all discussing the possibility that one day we may have a library. I personally, I think the library is one of our best assets. The people that run that library do a lot of great things other than just checking out books. I mean, that's hardly what they do at all now because they have a lot of classes, they have meetings and whatever else, but it is overcrowded. Now, are there alternatives to a brand new library? Can we expand on the one we have now, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera? All that's to be discussed, right?
Of course.
And it's not like, y'all have committed to this at all.
No, not at all. And I know the council is not united in their opinion. We have 7 people. We have 7 opinions as to what services the library should provide, where the library should be. I've heard good arguments on both sides of that.
That's another point of contention is that you'd move out west also with City Hall.
Yeah. Now, as I've heard, put it on the outskirts of town. Well, that's another consideration altogether, but everyone knows and fully expects that growth along the Chisholm Trail Parkway within the Chisholm Summit development and the surrounding area that will inevitably, unmistakably redevelop. Some vacant tracts of lands will develop. Some that are already built will be redeveloped. And that section of the city, geographic section of the city, is going to grow exponentially. If you look at a map and take original town of Burleson on the right-hand side of the map and the new cluster of Burleson that we're going to call the Chisholm Summit area, we're right in the dead center of that with the proposed city hall and library location. And that's been a part of the plan all along. That's the reason why we acquired that property, because it was strategically placed to serve a larger, expanded Burleson with really kind of 2 central nodes of development going on,
Well, our friend Sarah here, I'm excited to see what happens with that West End project. There's a lot of potential, and I'm excited to see what residents say they want to see there. Here's the thing that I never did get a good answer on this question. Moving out west, it seemed to be almost like I don't know, you're betraying the city. And I'm like, what is this all about? Why does it have to be where it is now? You're moving out west. I mean, that property that City Hall's on, the old police station's on, what used to be the Methodist Church and Hill College is on, that's some prime real estate for somebody to come in. I don't know if you'll ever sell that City Hall place, but there's some spots there that would bring in a lot of revenue to the city.
I have no difficulty at all in imagining what that side of the plaza could look like. If you see the plaza as being a central gathering place, then why would it not have bookends, on both sides? Why would it not have on the Wilson Street and Warren Street sides? Why would we not have development over there that would carry on what we've started? We already have the old West Building, I think it's called, that we've purchased, that was part of the plan for development that's supposed to come in after.
It's right next to Texas Bar.
Correct.
Right.
And that property, why could we not take the property that we now own on the opposite side, along the Warren Street side, and see more development over there? And then, of course, the existing City Hall footprint would could be expanded into another area of shops and retail and restaurant and things. Old Town can grow and still maintain its flavor. We've done a pretty good job with that so far, I think, of keeping it, making it ever more interesting with ever more variety and ever more things to do, yet maintain the flavor of what we had.
That's been one of the biggest changes I've seen in the last decade. That plaza, I think, has ignited a lot of the development in Old Town. Last Tuesday I was out kind of late, which is unusual. I'm usually at home at bed by 6. But I mean, it was a Tuesday night and the place was full. Yeah. The light is all lit up. There's a lot of restaurants that were, had business going on. I thought, this is a real change, even in the last decade. And I don't know. I never understood the argument why people got so upset by the idea of moving City Hall and the library further west. It's not like those spots are, sacred ground in the sense that, something legitimately historical happened there. I never understood that. But then again, I don't understand a lot of things about politics. But as far as this plan for a new library, in general, I support it. Now, I know that I don't know if I'll still be alive by the time it's actually built, because we're not going to be breaking ground on that for a decade.
Right.
And and that's if you start moving now.
Right.
And so I don't know. I just thought, to me, that was an issue that really was just generated out of nothing.
It is, and if you think about it from our perspective, as council members, there's a process that takes imagination all the way to reality. And there's no reason to skimp on the beginning phases of that. The imagining that you do, imagining what the city will look like in 20, 30, 50 years, imagining how the population will fill in, what kind of people, how they'll live, where they'll be, what their homes will look like, what businesses in the neighborhood. This imagining will gradually turn into planning, and planning will gradually turn into initiating a process of building, which will lead along the way. But if you don't imagine and plan and get ready, then you're going to be surprised by having a need that you've got to fulfill in a short period of time.
Right.
Or overused, overtaxed resources that aren't able to serve that level of service I mentioned earlier. And the library is just one of many things that we have to look at in that way. I
appreciate the fact that y'all are being far-sighted about this, because, sometimes I grew up in a town similar in a sense, Plano, where it blew up, and they had these same problems,
right.
And all this other stuff. And if you didn't have people in the school system and in the city that were willing to think like 2 decades from now what this is going to look like, then we'd be just trying to patch up the holes and just barely be afloat. But I'm glad that City Council is willing to take the time to say, okay, 10 years, 15 years from now, what's going to happen here? What are we going to look like?
Well, I kind of think that's our job.
It is. I mean, it's more than just keeping the streets clean and the potholes fixed and things of that nature. It's also to what if a lot.
Right. Absolutely.
This may happen and whatnot. Any development on that property that used to be the old Methodist Church in Hill College?
I don't think there's anything in the hot sheet right now for that. We're looking around for ideas. We had a developer that's not gone completely from the scene, but had made an offer to bring something in there that would have been really good, a nice mixed use thing that would have involved some restaurants, some retail, some office space, no residential component. The council had kind of come out and said, we don't want that again. We don't want to do that on that side anyway.
Well, do we not need more residential spaces?
We will, yes, we do. But I've been very, very cautious since the Depot on Main project came along. If you go back and follow that, and I didn't mean to divert the topic here, but it kind of informs the subject that we're talking about here. The original plan for the Depot on Main was mixed use. It was supposed to have a neighborhood services component. It was supposed to have a retail component. It was supposed to have other things. Now, the Depot on Main has turned out to be a good project. I like it. It's pretty. It's attractive, but it's not what it was started out to be. It was supposed to be mixed uses, and by the time, and it was also supposed to only be, I think, 3 stories high, but it grew by a story, then another story. Now we're 5 stories high.
Yeah,
and
it
we've
does
got
dominate.
a high-rise apartment building. Right. Not everyone's been comfortable with where that is. I'm starting to get used to it. My wife and I walked through there the other night. She said, it's really an attractive building. And I'm starting to come around a little bit, but I'm also very, very edgy anytime somebody starts talking to me about anything with a residential component. Now, I could see more residential development, and I mean high-density residential. I'm going out on a limb here. You're not asking me a question, but I'm answering it anyway.
Okay. It's fine with me.
We could have a residential component on that side of Renfro Street that could grow. First of all, besides that building, a lot of that area around there could really use an update, could really use a redevelopment. We have the old movie property up on Wilshire that's just sitting there basically doing nothing. We have the old car wash and storage property, and these are properties that aren't even attractive to look at as they are now. And I'm sorry if I apologize to any of the owners here, but those properties could also develop, and they could develop in a residential component. And one of the people, or some of the people that were not opposed to the development of the Depot on Main were our old town businesses. And if you think about it from another perspective, when you've got a site like that brings its own parking facilities along with it, suddenly you have 300 or so more possible customers for our old town businesses, and any of them need a parking place because they can walk there.
Right.
So when you start putting a little bit on the plus side of that, then you're getting better. But back to the property that you mentioned, at the moment, I don't think there's a hot plan out there. The word is on the street that we have this property. We've looked at one proposal. It didn't quite make it. The council didn't approve it, but we may get another one, and it may be more attractive.
Well,
plus we got to change some council members. So,
well, I'd like to see something mixed use there as well. I also been told that office space is at a premium in Burleson, not just living space, but we don't have a lot of just offices. I know that aren't there offices on top of Rizzu's and Himes now and that kind of thing. I know the city rents one of them out. And,
the city has the middle building,
right? And so I know that that's also a premium because you get in a situation where you don't have to be in Fort Worth to do your professional work,
right,
and that kind of thing. Because we're becoming almost our own town in a sense. I mean, we still have a lot of connections to Fort Worth, obviously, but here's this is off the cuff as well.
Fire.
We don't have any kind of public transit, and I'm not expecting to have a subway or a train or anything like that. But do we have? Is there possible we could have some sort of other type of public transit, like a shuttle service or things like that?
I think it's all possible. We do have a bus service, Cletran, that comes into town
every now and then.
Well, I know it's not a reliable service. There is public transportation just over the border at Fort Worth where we can access the T there, but that's not really a Burleson service or a Johnson County service. But when I came on council, the transit-oriented development with light rail service along the Santa Fe Railroad tracks was the hot thing. And
I remember that.
we've all seen what happened with that. At the time this idea was promulgated with North Central Texas Council of Governments, the Santa Fe Railroad had basically made it known in the early negotiations, early discussions, that they felt like they had the trackage, in other words, the ability to handle commuter traffic within their rail system without having a problem with their freight movement. Turned out, as the plan developed, that turned out not to be so anymore. And when the ATSF Railway came back and basically said, well, yeah, sure, we can run light rail, but you're going to have to build a parallel track because you can't tie up the single track that we have. Well, the billions of dollars that would have cost basically just meant that light rail coming out this area was just not going to happen.
Right. I remember there was some opposition to it, and most of the money would have been federal, but some of the opposition locally was they didn't really want to tie into the Fort Worth situation because they were afraid that people would take it the other direction and bring their problems and whatnot down here. But I get it. I like public transportation. You know, I take the TRE to Dallas and the DART and all that, but I'm kind of unusual about that. But I do know, because I talked to Jennifer Woods and Debbie Beeman, you know these ladies, they have a lot of people without vehicles. Leisha Schwartz, same thing. I just wonder if there's a way that if that could be considered. Now, I know it's not like, okay, the next meeting, which is tomorrow, right? You're going to vote on, okay, no, 73 buses or whatever. But I do think it's something to consider because there are a lot of people that can't get to the other part of town very easily. And certain areas of town are walkable, but a lot of them aren't.
A lot of them are not.
Yeah. And so if they had like a routine shuttle from like Old Town to, say, the HEB parking lot or the Kroger one or whatever, you know, I think you might find that they're going to be, if it's, you know, it's going to be used, I think. But anyway, that's what happens when you get a city council on the show. You get to throw all your ideas at him and go, hey, wouldn't it be cool? You know? And
honestly, Brad, it does kind of tie into my conceptual idea of what Burleson will look like 20, 30 years down the line when we have the new population node along the Chisholm Trail Parkway. You know, how does that happen to connect with the rest of Burleson? And as you say, some of the prime places that we have. If you were to live in the Chisholm Trail Parkway, where would you shop? Where would you buy your groceries? Where would you wash your car? Where would you that was a joke.
Yeah, I know. We got all the hamburger joints and the car washes we want, and but
my point is, to bring the community together as one community will need to be an overarching goal for the council if we're going to remain one city. You know, I made the comment the other day that what could happen to Burleson is what happened to the Burleson School District when Centennial came along. BHS and Centennial became a rival, basically, to each other in a lot of ways, not just in the terms of sports, but...
Oh, I can vouch for that.
And I know you know what I'm talking about.
We were BHS. We thought ourselves as the first wife, and Centennial as the trophy wife.
That's a fair characterization.
Yeah, and it's
I'd
like,
say.
you know, we got abandoned and scorned. But anyway.
So how do we feel when we have the new Burleson out on the Chisholm Trail Parkway and the old Burleson along I-35 in Wilshire? How do we put that all together? How do we make people see each other?
Well, I think one of the things that Burleson's really stressed, particularly in the last few years, is community and expansion, business opportunities. You know, that's why I like having Alex on the show, or you and Victoria and others on the show, because that's the vision. That's the guiding principle, is we don't want to be a community of isolated little islands of population like some of the big cities are.
Right.
You want to still maintain community. And that's why you have all these events in the plaza and other places, but primarily the plaza. And that's when I thought, you know, the public transport would be helpful. Would I use it? Well, I live out in the country a little bit. But if they had to stop and somebody else could drive me to HEB, I'd be all right with that sometimes, because, you know, traffic is getting thicker. It just the nature of it. And as those homes out on East Renfro come online more and more, traffic's going to get more and more crowded.
Right.
And I just think, you know, it's not just the environmental thing, too, even though I'm kind of semi-environmental. I have my limits. But that's a good goal to have, is some sort of connecting thread to keep the community together.
Yeah.
And I think we do a really good job with that. We have a lot of nonprofit events and city events and church events, and we have one coming up. In fact, this Saturday with the Chamber of Commerce. Now, Melissa would want me to bring that up. It's going to be from 10 to 2 over at Pathways, a business showcase.
Okay.
Have you ever been there?
No.
They did it first time last year. It's worth, if you have a couple of minutes, it's worth dropping by.
Okay.
It really is, because you'll see a lot of Burleson area businesses. I mean, a few Joshua people may sneak in, but it really. I was very impressed with it last year when the chamber ran it, and my networking group's going to be there. Plus, we're going to be there as individual chamber members, and you really get a sense of community from those kind of events. And there'll be food trucks, so it's not 10 to 2. You'll get lunch if you want it. So
sounds fun.
It is. It is really is, and that's another thing that I've always liked about this community. The chamber really does good work. Yeah, they really do. And our school systems are expanding. I had Randy Wilsey on Thursday, and she runs the CTE programs, and I'm just amazed at the amount of technology this system offers, and the programs and the variety of choices and things like that. You and I went to school at a time where CTE meant wood shop, right? Or maybe if at best, HVAC or something like that. But now they got they have 12 programs, all large, areas, departments of programs. It's amazing to me. And that's the kind of time we're living in. How long have you been on the city council?
2007, and 17 years.
So you've seen it.
Oh, yeah.
And the good and the bad, because we were talking before the show about how you had to make some really hard decisions when the economy sunk in 2008 and 9.
Right.
And I guess we're fortunate that we're not faced with that problem, and that's a worse problem to have.
Right. Very much.
Yeah. And so you decided to go run again. I guess your political machine must have scared everybody off or something. I don't know. I honestly thought we would have some opposed races. We have 2.
Yeah. We
don't have any in the school board. They're all unopposed, which is fine. I like all 3 of the people very well, so I'm good with that. But we have Victoria as an opponent, and then we had the open seat.
Yes.
And I just was surprised that, honestly, Dan, that you didn't draw an opponent. I know you're pleased, but
pleased and surprised. Yeah, of course.
Well, because when you're in a position like that, you make decisions that's going to irritate somebody, and so.
Always.
Sherry Scott is going to ask you about that question. I'll let you answer that if you want.
I'm going to answer that very, very carefully.
Well, should we even? I didn't even want to say it out loud. All right, so I'll let you.
Because
say
there's a rule in the state of Texas that once I announce my intention, even on social media or even in a forum such as this, that I have to resign my position. Well, we're 2 years away from there being a mayor's race, right, so for me to say now that I will run for mayor would be a little chancy.
Yes, but something to think about.
Ask me again in 2 years.
Yeah, something to think about.
Ask me again. I promise.
Okay, so for those who will be hearing this show as opposed to watching it, Sherry Scott's asking about your plans for running for mayor, and he answered it. So a couple of years from now, we'll find out. But wouldn't be a bad idea. I could say that.
Well, thank you.
And it kind of brings me up one other point. It seems to me, just from my distance, this council's working pretty well together.
I think this council works very well together.
There's different opinions and all, but that's what governing is,
right?
And it's not, but as far as I could tell, it's been the temperature is very cool instead of getting amped up and all this.
It's been a little whacked out.
Yeah,
and now over the past few years.
But now it just seems like this is what a city council should be like. It's these boring. It's like, you turn in the city council meeting looking for fireworks. No, you're going to hear a lot of stuff that just okay.
But look at the talent that we've got up there. I mean,
I think so too.
Think about it, and I don't want to enumerate everybody, but we've got some really shining stars up there on the council right now, and. We've got people like,
Larry.
Yeah,
he really adds a lot.
Larry has added a ton to the council. When something comes up on the agenda, I think he drops everything that he's doing and just digs and digs and digs and digs, and he learns everything there is to learn, and then He's able to clearly articulate his opinions. Sometimes I've agreed with him, sometimes I've not. But
it hasn't been acrimonious.
He is very much.
It's very appropriate.
Yeah, I mean, there's always positive. It's everybody, and look at Adam. Adam with his financial ability. I voluntarily resigned my position as chair of the finance committee because I thought he's got the skill set for this. I've been keeping it going, but this is something he needs to do. Now you got Phil with his sports background, and
he knows everybody and their dog practically. Phil's been here longer than I have, and he was one of the first people I met when we worked at BISD together, and we worked in the same department for years. I think Sherry would say that the real secret to Larry's success is the support she gives him. What do you think, Sherry? Anyway, well,
I know that has to be true.
The wives really do. The spouses, let's put it that way, have to really be supportive of what they're doing because it takes a lot of your time, doesn't it?
It does.
And sometimes they have to endure some of the cheap shots in silence, or at least not get on their Facebook and respond, or put it that way.
Yeah.
But
I know that my wife will stay very much in the background if it should come to the point where, but that makes her basically no difference from Ashley Shedder. Ashley was a sweet, wonderful lady, but she kept a good distance away from all of the flack that flew at Ken from time to time. And she managed to handle it with grace and.
Well, Sherry agrees with you that she is the secret of Larry's success, but there you go.
So do I, Sherry.
But I've talked to Victoria about her, what her impact this has on her family. I've talked to Ronnie, and he had his daughters on with him one time, and they had some stories, because it's not everybody plays fair, and that's the nature of the job. I mean, when you got in 2007, what was motivating you then?
I've said this before that. I had always had a very jaundiced viewpoint about people that serve on city council. And what got my curiosity kind of piqued was that, and I know everybody's heard this story before, but the city had put notices out to people up and down Brushy Mound Road that they wanted to build a cell phone tower on the top of our hill. And nobody wanted that. Cell phone towers, at least at the time, were big, tall, hardware, black cables, little scientific-looking things sticking out in every direction. And that's the last thing anybody wanted next to their, home. So it was kind of a funny scene. It was almost a post-apocalyptic scene where our neighbors were just standing out in the street talking to each other about, what are we going to do about this? We don't want this. And I happened to walk into one of those conversations. Now, as a background, my career has been dealing with cities. I'm a contractor for cities, so I've had city councils and city managers and public works and all these kinds of things. It's just part of my DNA. So I heard what they said and basically said, folks, if you don't want this, I know how to prevent it. And I sort of became the neighborhood representative. And as it worked out, the city council was very responsive, as the Planning and Zoning Commission was as well. When the citizens came down and said, no, we don't want this, they listened, and the whole initiative went away. But the process of going through that got me interested. Someone came to me and suggested, well, why don't you run for city council? There's a position open this election. And I said, oh, hell no. But then it stuck, and I thought about it, and I thought, all these years I've had this opinion about people serving on city council for selfish interests. That's the only reason they're there. They got a development project they want to push for. They got something else they want. They're doing it for selfish. And I thought, well, wait a minute. There's two things here. First of all, why don't you get on board and find out? You might be wrong. And on the other hand, if you're right, show them a different way to be. And I got stuck at that point and said, you know what? Yeah, I'm gonna see how this goes.
And it still motivates you now.
And it turned out I was wrong. I think everybody that I served with back then and everybody I served with now since then, by and large, we've all been good people without selfish interest, with nothing but the good of the city at heart. And I know we've had some people that kind of skated close to the edge of the ice in the past on that particular subject. But by and large, it's just good people that care for the community and want to do what's right and bring the skill sets they've acquired in their lives to the fore and put them out there to help out. So it's still my same motivation. I'm still trying to trying to do things the right way.
Well, I've often said that one of the benefits of me doing the show is I get to see things more globally than I did before. Because when I was in the schools, I was just focused on room 123 and what's going on in that, and how's it affected me down the street when they make a decision. And now that I've had shows with BISD, and I've known the school board members for a long, long time. Okay, I've known them for 2 decades or more. But I get a better idea how the decisions are being made, what impacts those decisions. Not everything is as clear as it seems like it when you're just focused on the ground level. And same thing with the city. I think the city, running any kind of democratic process like this is awkward and inefficient and can be tedious or whatever else, but that's what governing is. And I think a lot of people get confused, particularly with our national scene, where it seems like entertainment's what drives our politics at the national level. But that's me saying it, not Dan.
No,
don't send me the cards and letters.
I'm going to salute that too.
But it seems like that kind of flamboyant and controversial nature works there, but it doesn't work for a city. We need boring city council meetings where we deal with, okay, which streets, okay, we got a water main problem, or we got this piece of property and some people want to put a park on it and some people want to do this with it and blah, blah, blah. And you make those decisions, so That's what it is. And I'm glad we're back to traditional governing. And I think the fact that you don't have an opponent and, I think that's indicative of people they're not lethargic. I think they're just saying, we're fine with having him in there for another 3 years or as long as he wants. So, anyway, we're getting close on time. I appreciate you being here.
Oh, glad to.
Yeah, we'll, do this in a few more months from now. I'd like to have y'all on a routine. Like I said, tomorrow I'm going to replay Dwayne Burns's show since my plans fell through, but I'll give poor Taylor the day after. Tomorrow is Taylor's birthday, by the way.
Oh, happy birthday, Taylor.
Thank you.
Yeah, so he's going to give him a little extra time to sleep in or whatever he does on his day.
He's 21, right?
Yeah, you'd think, right?
I wish.
Jackie Jones says, thanks for your service, Dan.
You're very welcome.
And,
Thank you.
All right, and on Thursday we'll have Victoria. And I'll remind you that Dwayne Burns at 6 o'clock at the Cleveland Convention Center is there to meet and greet and song and music and food. And so be there and show me your support. And we'll see y'all Thursday.
Excellent.